You never leave a mooring in the direction that the tide is flowing in. So you never leave with the tide under you. And the reason is, if we've got 3 knots of tide going this way and we leave the mooring this way, we're going to need to be going faster than the tide to get flow over the rudder so that we've got any kind of steerage. So if we've got steerage at 1 knot of boat speed through the water and we've got 3 knots of tide, we need to be moving at 4 knots over the ground before we can actually gain any steerage and make our way out into the river. So almost certainly in this situation, you're going to end up graunching down the side of the boat that is moored next to you. And you'll only be trying to solve the problem by putting more coal on the fire and putting more throttle on. And it's going to make you very unpopular and it's going to be a really bad day out. In addition to this, you've got no escape route. You've basically cut off all your escape options, because if you decide halfway through the manoeuvre that it's not working out, there's not really much you can do about it. So you've cut off all your escape routes. So this is why you always leave a mooring into the tide, whether that's bow into the tide or stern into the tide. And actually, stern into the tide, you've got just as much manoeuvrability as what you would have bow into the tide, if not more. So we're going to reverse into the tide, but we're going to stem the tide and stay parallel to the pontoon, and we're going to slowly move our way into the middle of the river, and then we can either proceed down tide or we can turn around and head into the tide and continue our journey. So when it comes to our approach, we're going to essentially pop the motor in reverse, get the rudder so it's straight, and we're going to slip the stern line and aim out into the river, keeping parallel with the pontoon until we're comfortably away, where we can then proceed down tide or we can turn around and head back into the tide. So just to cover our escape route in this situation, we've got a few options. If it's going to go wrong, then I'm either going to drop the revs off a bit and maybe come back into the mooring and I can attach the stern line again. Or if the tide catches the stern, I'll let it take me round and I can turn around in the river. So I've got 2 ways to deal with it if it goes wrong. So they're my backup options and very low consequence of this manoeuvre going wrong. If it was to go wrong, I've got a way out of it, and that is absolutely key. And because we're already moving into the tide, we've already got steerage over the rudder. So we don't actually need to be moving over the ground. We're just going to be moving through the water, which means we've got steerage very early on. So I've detached all my other lines. I'm sitting here on the stern line at the moment and I've got it on a slip. I'm holding the tiller straight into the tide and I'm currently in neutral. So the first thing I'm going to do is put it in reverse. And it's really important not to let go of the tiller and maintain steerage throughout the manoeuvre. So I'm in reverse, I'm already moving astern and I can actually steer very easily at the moment with the tiller. So actually if I was to let go of the stern line now, I'm fairly confident that I'm not going to get swept away out of control. So I'm going to slip the line now. And I'm going to aim to remain parallel to the mooring as I work my way slowly out into the river. And as I get out where there's more tide, I'm probably going to have to apply more throttle. I've got really good steerage. And whichever way I'm pointing the tiller, it's the direction I'm going to go. I've got to make sure that the tide cannot catch one side of the boat or the other side, because that will initiate the turn. So now, in order to get some speed on, I'm going to have to give it a sharp burst on the throttle, because if I want to go this way, I've essentially got to match the speed of the tide plus a bit before I've got steerage. So I'm going to need to be moving 4 knots over the ground maybe before I've got any steering and any water flow over the rudder. So one last check, make sure all set up, and I'm going to put it ahead and give it a burst. I haven't got steerage yet, and now I've got steerage.